Hello again. Welcome to the weekend. Welcome to the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. My name is Randy Cook. I'm here each week with Mark as we talk through some of the issues that are going out there in the financial news. And we're going to start there today because there's a lot to talk about. And then we talk about how it affects you. And also, what are you going to do when it comes to your retirement? Somewhere along the line, you're going to walk away from work, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. And then where does the paycheck come from? You've been saving all these years. How does that work? There's Social Security, and then what? We are here to discuss the and then what. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Randy, and I love talking about the then what. So let's get right into it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There is so much out there. We all wonder how all of this news that's out there right now economically is going to affect us. So, I mean, since the last time you and I have talked, we have employment numbers, which were not that great. PPI, which is the Producer Price Index, which is what it costs everybody to make stuff, that went down. So that's good. And then the CPI, which is the inflation number, went up a little bit. So that's not good. So how are we supposed to read all this for people who are getting ready for retirement, people who are in retirement, all that's swirling around Jerome Powell and the interest rates and the economy? What's your take on it? And what are you telling your clients if they have questions about this?
This is something my clients ask me about all the time. I mean, this comes up constantly because they know that I love to study the economy, because how you invest your money has a lot to do with how the economy is working and how things are going about. Because we've discussed this in the past that everything, to me, when you're investing, it happens to be interest sensitive. So it really is an ebb and flow of how we want to invest for folks. So this is something that comes up. And what I'll say is this. I was a little surprised. The CPI went from 2.4 to 2.7, then back to 2.7 again, leveled off, and then shot up to 2.9. And I'm thinking, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because, like we said before, jobs are not really being created as much as they need to be. But then, the PPI was down a little bit. So here we are, we're talking about this ebb and flow of, but then yet somehow the CPI is up year over year a little bit. And I'm trying to analyze this. I don't think it's a great sign for the market unless they cut the rate a little bit too, because I think they have to combat that little increase as well at the same time. I think we're starting to run into an era. I know that Mr. Wonderful had mentioned that he thought that there might be only one rate cut, but I just don't see the data yet for that.
Gotcha. So one thing that I find interesting just in the last couple of years that I've been following this closely, and that is the stock market used to be a reflection of how the economy is doing. Now it seems like the economy can be kind of poor, the numbers can be poor, but the market keeps going up. They're not really as connected as what they used to be. Do you see it that way?
Yes, I don't think they're always interchangeable together. I just simply, when I look at the market now, I feel like it's been overly inflated for a long time. I mean, we're looking at the stock market high after high after high. And Randy, we haven't had a correction in 16 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's historic, right? We talked about most recently, 2023 and 2024, how the market was up over 20% in consecutive years. And that was the first time that's happened since 1955. We're talking about 70-year data here. So what are we going off of at this point in the future? So this is where I tell people, look, if you're getting closer to retirement, do we want to buckle up a little bit? Do we want to take certain steps in this area? There are folks that just don't care. They just put all their money in the market. Look, I'll talk to anybody about anything, and that's perfectly fine because we work with things on the market side. We work with things on the insurance side. Let's have these conversations. Come into my office and let's have a discussion about your future.
Well, one of the things about the discussion now is interest rates, as you just mentioned. And I know that President Trump really wants those interest rates to come down. He's been very vocal about that with Jerome Powell. And, he's a real estate guy. And so he kind of thinks, and that's where he kind of focuses. And I know that the whole idea of housing is really important to our economy because if you buy a house, the next thing you do is you buy a lawnmower and you buy curtains and you buy furniture and the people at Home Depot love you and it's nonstop. You're just filling that house with stuff and that's good for the economy. But if people aren't buying houses because the interest rate is too high, that is a problem. So is it all about housing right now or do you see it as a part of the debt that he's trying to get the interest interest rate down so the debt isn't so big? There's probably a lot of different reasons here.
Yeah, I think he knows there's several things. So let's just think about consumers in general. People graduating college, maybe they get married, starting a family, they want to buy a house, right? That's just normal progression. Well, those numbers are down.
Yeah.
They're not buying houses because let's just think about it. Everything went way up. So the houses are worth more and interest rates are up. So the payment might not agree with their bottom line. And this is what's happening. And so you're seeing these kids, they're renting. And I don't think renting is throwing money away. Sometimes even renting in retirement is a great thing. So I think about the young folks, and then I think about commercial real estate. Interest rates are high. Well, most of the groups that own real estate, commercial real estate, interest rates are so high, you see companies leaving these buildings because they don't want to pay that rent anymore, right? So they might even shut down some stores. And then there's companies going out of business just simply because they can't afford to do it anymore. Things are going upside down. And so the economy's starting to show us some things here. And I think that Jerome Powell, from a real estate background, knows that it's probably time to cut at least 0.25%. And that's the point. That's why we talk about these things. Another 0.25%, maybe another 0.25%. That's a discussion that we have here. And it does matter because these products that we work with on the insurance side of the business are interest sensitive. So it's always to get into them when they're on the high, because usually the insurance companies try their very best to keep rates pretty similar. But when the economic data changes and interest rates drop quite a bit, like people that got into, let's say, annuities back in 2019, 2020 and historic lows, you might want to look at those contracts at this point because you got in at such bad interest rates.
You're listening to the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. You can find us online at moretoretire.com. Again, moretoretire.com. To sit down and talk to Mark about your retirement, here's our number. It's 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. So, Mark, sometimes when we have headlines like this, I imagine myself in retirement. And how would I be reading that, and what kind of concern would I have about that? I was just looking through some headlines about layoffs, and when we see people losing their jobs, this is a concern for our economy. I mean, Salesforce just laid off 4,000 people, John Deere, 1,000 people, Microsoft, Intel, BP, Chevron, Grubhub, Opendoor, all these people are laying off, and that would concern me. But if I'm in retirement and I'm doing what I want to do, I'm going on cruises, I'm traveling, I'm playing golf, I'm doing all this kind of stuff, I kind of want to turn the headlines off. And when that stuff is going on, I want to make sure that the income is coming in no matter what the economy is doing. And I think, isn't that really what the retiree mindset should be, is to say, it can all go crazy out there in the headlines, but as long as the check is still coming my way, I'm going to be okay.
And that's key. So sources of income or income while you're working, income in retirement. Here's a tale of two different stories. Let me share with you two different things here. One, I just got off the phone recently with a woman that's 55 years old. At 27 years old, she worked at this company. It's a printing company. She worked there for 28 years until she just got laid off at age 55. She doesn't have any other income plan provisions. She has a 401k. We have to have a real discussion about what's going to happen now and what's going to happen in the future, and what kind of hardship withdrawals does she need to take or be prepared to take during this period of time. Because she's like, well, what about the 10% penalty? I said, well, look, don't worry about the 10% penalty. You're not employed. So, there's a provision where you can go in there and there's a hardship withdrawal. And you could do that several times. You could work that out with your accountant, your CPA, whoever you're working with, right? Here's the other story. The other story is a gentleman I'm talking to the other day, and we're just discussing his overall situation. He's got a TSP. He worked for the government and everything. And then on top of that, what has he done? Well, he used to work. He used to be in the military, so he has a military pension. Then, and in addition to that, he's got a disability. So he's got disability. He's got a military pension, and then we're just kind of discussing the level of when we turn on Social Security and those types of things. But he has several sources of income, so we don't have to supplement a whole lot, because when he does retire in a couple of years, also he's going to get a federal pension too. So
wow.
There's several things we're looking at here, and the difference is, one person has income and an income plan, and we can work with that. The other one, we might have to figure out the legs and phases of what we need to do now versus what we need to do next.
It's that old story that we talk about, would you rather be a person with $1 million in your 401k, or would you rather be a person with $100,000 in your savings account and a $60,000 a year pension? You think about that, and most people would say, I want the $1 million. But you know what? That million really isn't a million. It's probably more like 700,000 because it's full of taxes. And that person is susceptible to the ups and downs of the market because that's usually where the money is. And that person could probably run out of money. When you got that pension coming in, that's going to be there. That's going to be there. And so having that sustainable income that we talk about in retirement, knowing where that paycheck is going to come from is so vitally important. And it's a question that you need to have answered. Let's get the answer for you and find out where the money's coming from, what you want to do, and put the two together. Here's our website and here's our number, more2retire.com, more2retire.com. Bottom of the page there's a place for you to put a little contact information in there for us. And then Mark and the team will reach out to you and say, what's on your mind? What's got you concerned? What's got you worried? How can we help? That really just starts the conversation right there. Then maybe we get to the point where we sit down and put the papers out on the table and really do some math on your retirement. You can also call us, do the very same thing. 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. There's a lot of different ways to get paid in retirement. You can just peel money off the top of your 401k or your savings, or you can set something else up. What kind of income do people really like in retirement? Well, according to Christine Benz at Morningstar, she says people like Social Security. They like pensions. They like annuities. They like treasuries. They like guaranteed income that's going to come in each and every month in your retirement.
To the extent that they have non-portfolio income coming in, they tend to be more comfortable spending it. They give themselves more license to spend, which to me translates into a little bit of a happiness dividend. If you're not worried about the spending that you're doing, you're just going to be more comfortable and happy in retirement. So I think that's an important finding, that people who have more guaranteed income do tend to be a bit comfier and happier in retirement.
I couldn't agree more. When I go to a blackjack table, I don't go to the casinos very much, but when I'm at a blackjack table, I have two stacks of chips in front of me. My money and their money. And I spend their money a little more freely than I spend my money. And I think that is kind of the case here. Talk to me a little bit about that, Mark. Do you see people want to spend that Social Security before they dip into their 401k because they see that as government money and then their money? Or how do people view income in retirement?
Yeah, I think that what we want to do is always focus on what's important to the person. Mm-hmm. So one thing I always say is this. Yeah, turn on Social Security whenever you're ready to turn on Social Security. Most people are turning on at 62, but 65 is also a very common age. If you're waiting to 67 or 70 because you're working, I get that. I understand, because you want to have that earned income and not get penalized, from taking what you're taking, right? So having this conversation and understanding what's best for the person, we want to know this. So Social Security, let's just take, for example, what if they never fix the system? If they didn't fix the system, let's just project that you're going to get 80% of your Social Security. Mm-hmm. So we'll just count that into the equation. Then if you got pensions and other things like that, it's fantastic. I feel pretty confident about it, especially if it's like a federal pension. Then let's talk about where the pension's coming from. So I know that there have been companies that have failed. When they fail, a lot of times what they're doing is that they might be protected under the Pension Guarantee Act, right? But at the same time, it only protects up to a certain amount. So then there might be another situation that could come up where they say, you know what? We're done. We're just going to send you a rollover check, and you can roll that to an IRA if you want. And usually it's not a whole heck of a lot of money. So all of these different things, how people take money, how they take their withdrawals, what do they need in retirement? The one thing I would say is if you don't have any provisions other than Social Security, we need to start coming up with them right now. Because if you've got 5 years or left before you retire, let's have that conversation, because I think that having some type of stream of income, and people like to use annuities, they'll use guaranteed lifetime income riders, in the process with the annuity, and that gives them a type of income stream for the rest of their life, as long as the insurer is stable. And, but you also fall under provisions of the reinsurance, the Guarantee Association Act too. That's just something that we like to talk about a little bit with regards to the protective barriers of having an annuity or something to that effect. But if we want to also take money from treasuries, bonds, we could also take money from structured notes. Mm-hmm. There are structured notes that are income notes. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do this, and we just want to figure out what's best for the person in their situation and their scenario, because when you're working your whole life, You're working accumulation. But guess what? When you get to retirement, it eases off. So we want to figure out, hey, have we made enough money? And if so, what do we do with it now? And what do we do with it in retirement? Because what we want to do is make sure you have enough income in retirement. So let's figure out the sources.
I think every week we talk about the change in retirement. I mean, your health care is going to change. You got that from your employer all these years, and now it's coming from something called Medicare. It's a change. You know, your paycheck, came from your employer. Now it's going to come from you in some way, shape, or fashion. That's a big change. And I think this is another change in your retirement, is that you probably got one check from your employer, and that's where your money came from. Maybe you have a little bit on the side. You do a little work here or there. Maybe you have a talent of some type that you have a little industry in your garage and you do something. I don't know what it is, but you get another check from somebody else. But in retirement, Mark, it is okay to build multiple checks in retirement and get a check from Social Security, a check from an annuity, a draw off your 401k, structured notes, all these different. It's okay to have 5 or 6 different places to get paid from. That's another change in retirement that we're not kind of used to, are we?
No, and that's what you have to get used to, because sometimes people get really nervous about retirement because they're thinking, but don't I have to keep doing this? I've been doing this my whole life. I feel confident that I know I'm going to get this check because I'm doing this. And now I got to rely on something that's passive income, right? It's not earned income. I get it. And maybe you want to work part-time and do some things, maybe some consulting. That's a very common practice amongst a lot of my retirees. I'll say that it does matter about where your money is coming from, but we can show you. We can show you how you can use this passive income and find different streams in retirement and make it more on the level of, okay, I feel certain this money is going to be coming in. And what happens is it just takes sometimes 6 months to a year, sometimes a couple of years for people to realize it's going to be okay. But I tell them ahead of time.
You're listening to the Mark Osler Retirement Experience, and you can find us online at moretoretire.com. If it's time to talk about your retirement, one of the main questions is, how am I going to get paid? What's my paycheck in retirement? Let's build it for you. If it's more than one source, that's okay. There's a lot of different things to choose from, and these are some of the things that we're not really familiar with because we never dealt with them in our working years. But now we're in retirement. The money's going to come from different places. Let's get that locked down. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website, moretoretire.com. Bottom of the page, a place for you to put some information in there. Mark will reach out to you and say, okay, how can we help? You can also give us a call, 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. Well, whenever we read headlines of a big company, a national company that goes out of business, it's a little bit of a shock. My daughter worked for Joann Fabrics, and they just went out of business. You remember Circuit City? That was a big deal for a long time. Toys R Us. Who knew Toys R Us would go out of business? Well, now this one made me go, are you kidding me? The Publishers Clearinghouse has gone out of business. They've gone bankrupt. You remember Ed McMahon with the balloons and the oversized check, and he would come to people's doors and surprise them. You just won $5,000 a week for life. And now, apparently not, because they have gone out of business. And there's a bunch of people out there that promise was made to them, and they are not going to be able to fulfill that promise. So, Mark, here is a classic example of somebody who depended on income from a certain spot, and now all of a sudden that gets cut off. It's kind of like some of these companies that provide pensions, and then they say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to restructure, and when we do, we're not going to do pensions anymore. So talk to me about the changes that you've encountered for people. They thought something was going to happen in their retirement, but it turned out not to be true.
Sure. I mean, let's talk about some different ones that I saw over the years. I saw with clients that came to me and said, hey, what is this letter? And I would have to read it for them and understand that the company's going out of business and they want to pay them out a lump sum pension because this is what they have left, and I get it. And sometimes there are situations where the pension continues just based on what's remaining in the account versus what the Pension Guarantee Association does. And they might supplement a little bit, but usually not to the level of what they were getting before. And so I've encountered several things like this over the years. And the conversation occurs where we say, okay, do we need another source of income? Mm-hmm. And if so, where do we take it from? And this conversation happens quite a bit. And what I like to just kind of say is this. I think that there are certain pensions out there that you could pretty much count on. And there's some that maybe we should be prepared just in case something comes up. And I think that would be a great way to hedge, because hedging can make a big difference in retirement. I mean, if you're retiring with a mortgage, maybe we need to have a conversation about whether it's possible to pay it off or not, or whether it's even worth it to pay it off or not. There's situations where I would tell a person that probably it'd be best maybe not to. And in other situations, maybe it would be good for you to do this. And the conversation is all about the bottom line, because we need to know the bottom line. And we don't want to just know, what are your expenses on a month-to-month basis. We want to know the annualized expenses so we can calculate a monthly. Then we want to calculate the annualized expenses of travel and things like that, and other unexpected expenses like home repairs, car oil changes, gas, all this stuff. And then we encompass all of that and get an idea. And then we prepare for taxes and inflation. So the conversation, there's a huge conversation to be had here with regards to if a person maybe goes belly up. Do I feel bad for somebody with the Publishers Clearinghouse? They're making $5,000 a week and now they're not going to make it. I mean, I have some empathy there. Maybe a little,
Maybe
Randy.
a little. Yeah, there was a guy in the story. His name is John, and he won in August of 2012. So far, he's collected over $3 million. And they interviewed him, of course, and said, hey, there's no more money coming. And he said, when that next check doesn't come, he says, I'm out of luck. He's going bankrupt. And I went, are you kidding me, dude?
Did he elaborate? Like, did he have, does he have a house? I mean,
he had bought a farm. He had animals. He had equipment. He had all this kind of stuff. That was kind of his dream, to retire in the country. And now he's got a big mortgage, and he's probably, he just waits every year for that big check to come in, and then he pays on it. And so now he can't. And so that to me also means people who need money management help. I mean, if he had gone to a financial advisor like you and said, okay, this is coming my way every year. How do I make sure that this isn't going to stop? Or if it does stop, I don't stop, because I think that's really important too.
Absolutely. If you knew you had this money coming in, and this is your idea that, because this is coming in now, I'm going to retire on the Publishers Clearinghouse. I get it. But shouldn't we make provisions for putting money aside and growing it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because if you don't, something like this is going to happen. And that's why you do need to be prepared. In the Bible, it says prepare your fields, right? And that's what we need to do. We prepare our fields for the harvest. But how do we do it? We got to set back. Just like in the Bible when it talks about the person that gave the money to the servants. So the servants were doing some work for him. So he each gave them money. And one person just built and invested it and did well. And the second person invested it in the bank and made some interest on it. And third person put it in the ground. And the master came back, and boy, was he upset with that third person, right? Because you did nothing with it. So here we are. He took that from that person and gave it to the first person that built upon it, because he knew what kind of return was going to come. And we need to use that type of wisdom for ourselves as well.
Yep. We need to be good stewards of our money. And you have saved your whole life, and you've been working hard for this time in your life. Now we need a little bit of help, need a little bit of management. And that's where Mark can help. Give us a call. Give us a look. Let's start the conversation. I know you have questions. You have questions. Maybe it's about the economy and the markets and all that kind of thing. Maybe it's a worry about health. Maybe you have had a parent who went into memory care. Maybe you've seen someone else get into a tax problem in retirement, and you've seen this stuff happen. And you go, how do I avoid that? What do I need to do? Let's start there. Give us a call. or just start at the website, moretoretire.com. Pretty easy. Spell it out, moretoretire.com. Bottom of the page is a place for you to put some information in there. Mark will give you a call, and we'll start the conversation. We'll start talking about your concerns and how we may be able to help. 984-300-1984 is our number. 984-300-1984. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Warren Buffett, Tony Robbins, and Mark Osler all agree on this, and we'll tell you what it is. Coming up next on the Mark Osler Retirement Experience.
A simple piece of paper. It's something we use every day. For the most part, it does what it's designed to do. It sits there flat on your desk as a placeholder for information. But with a couple strategic folds, suddenly your flat piece of paper becomes an airplane and flies across the room. Your 401k is kind of like that flat piece of paper. It just sits there as a placeholder for your money. Mark Osler can show you those strategic moves to take your 401k from just sitting there to creating the income you need for retirement. Call today for a free no-obligation meeting. 984-300-1984. That's 984-300-1984. Or online at moretoretire.com.
Welcome back to the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Online, you can find us at moretoretire.com. You can also find our podcast, which is on iTunes and Spotify under the same name, the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. So if you're listening to us on the radio and you got to get out of the car, you want to hear a little bit more, want to hear past shows, find out more about Mark, you can go to our podcast and you can listen whenever you want. All right, one thing that we'll talk about on the show here and there is, where do you put your money? And how much is this costing you? The people at Fidelity and the people at Vanguard and your financial advisor, all probably very, very good people, but they don't work for free. It doesn't come free. So Warren Buffett talks a little bit about fees in investing.
Costs really matter in investments. If returns are going to be 7 or 8% and you are paying 1% for fees, that makes an enormous difference in how much money you have on retirement.
Which doesn't seem so bad. If you're getting 7 and 8%, you pay 1%. But he says it makes an enormous difference. How much of a difference does it make? Here's Tony Robbins.
A 1% in fee, because of the compounding over time, costs you 10 years of retirement income. The average person thinks they're paying less than 1% or nothing, and they're paying 3.1%. That's 30 years of fees.
Yow. Okay, that gets you right in the heart right there. Because we don't think about this on a 20 or 30-year basis. We think about this over 1 year. And when I see something in Vanguard and it says 0.05% or this one's 0.75 or this one's 1%, I don't think too much about that. But according to Tony Robbins, this could really rob you of retirement years. Talk to me about, are people even aware of this, and how do you bring up this in the conversation?
One of the things that I like to discuss with folks is that I happen to be one of only 300 advisors that uses a group called Market Guard, and it's actively managed portfolio management. Our registered investment advisor firm is Impact Partnership Wealth. I'm an investment advisor representative underneath that, in which what do we do? We manage the money from the fiduciary side of the business or fiduciary care of the business. So that just means it's totally just fee-based. But our objective is, if you're going to pay us a fee to manage your money, then we want to reduce all the other fees. So that's really important to us, Randy. So I ran a report for someone the other day, and they had like 3 mutual funds, and I felt like it just seemed like it wasn't a very attractive portfolio for a lot of reasons. I looked at it and I said, okay, this is what the report is telling us. When we run this report, it identifies certain factors. Well, her internal expense ratio, based on how those were invested once we broke it all down, was about 0.64%. That's on the higher side of things, and they're mutual funds, and I get that. I've seen some mutual funds over 1%.
Wow.
Now, she's not paying a fee for someone to manage it because she has it passively in these 3 different funds. But for me to manage it, we charge a fee. But where we can save you money is on the internal expense ratio. So, if you're in a pure equity model, if it's stock and stuff like that, well, you don't have an expense ratio. But if you're talking about our ETF model, it's right in the neighborhood of around 0.1, somewhere around there. And that's where you can save some money. So that's really important to understand those factors. But there was also something else in the report that kind of stuck out. The other thing that in the report that stuck out was that the standard deviation, which Randy loves to talk about as the wobble.
The wobble.
Right, Randy?
That's right.
How that combination
goes
right?
back and forth. How high will it go? How low will it go? That's the wobble.
Yeah, and it's shaken based on the risk versus the return. And then when we want to look at the risk, we look at the beta. And the beta tells us, and the easiest way to understand this is the S&P 500 is a standard 1.0 beta, and NASDAQ is a standard 1.1 beta. That just means that NASDAQ is more volatile than S&P. Okay?
All right.
So now let's take that standard 1.0. Well, this person had a standard deviation of about 12.5, where the S&P's is more like around 15. And then their beta was a 1.02, where the beta with S&P was a 1.0, meaning that this beta was a little bit higher than the S&P, but less wobble or potential return.
Okay.
And for me, I don't like that. So in addition to being able to save potentially on the internal expense ratio, and we've got our fee-based, how we're investing the money and so on and so forth, what we're also going to do is try to reduce the beta as well. And that's the objective. On our pure equity model, the most recent beta I looked at was in the neighborhood of somewhere between 0.86 and 0.87. That's a good deal less than the current beta of 1.0. So these are the types of things we talk about and discuss, because if you're going to pay us a fee to manage it, we're going to do our best to give you the best possible, I would say, management. That's the best we can do for you. And we're gonna stand by it. And I could tell you the pure equity model in general rebalances every single quarter. So it's actively managed. And to me, that makes a huge difference, based on how we can keep that beta down.
I always try to relate these things that you talk about to experiences that I've had in my life. I had some people come and paint my house, okay? And the shutters on my house were looking kind of bad, and the clips were bad. And I said, we're probably going to have to replace all those. And one guy came over and gave me a quote, said, yeah, we can replace all that stuff. And another guy came over and says, you know what? I don't think you need to. He says, I think I can fix that, and I can make these look new, and I can do all that for a lot less. I can reduce some cost here for you. And I mean, when you look at me and say, let's reduce costs, let's reduce risk, let's reduce, I think that is one thing that I would love to hear when I sit down and talk to my financial advisor and find out what they're doing for me to help save money, so maybe some of that money can go back in my pocket. And maybe that's what you're thinking as well. These are the kind of discussions you can have with Mark to sit down and talk about your retirement. And if you want to have that conversation, give us a look on the website, look around, see what Mark does, find out about his process. And we're going to go through that process in just a few minutes here. But moretoretire.com is the website. moretoretire.com, or use our phone number, which is 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. Well, when you go into retirement, there's some things you need. You obviously need some assets. Maybe it's a 401k, some savings, whatever you've done to save for your money. And then there's the talking about taxes, and maybe that 401k is loaded with taxes. We got to talk about that. There's a lot of things to talk about. But then as the dominoes continue to click, there is a conversation about documents, legal documents, things that you need at this point in your life. I want to ask you, Mark, how many people that come through your door already have a will in their lives?
The people that come into my office, I would say you have about 3 out of 4.
Oh,
3 out of 4 would have a will.
That's good.
Now, in terms of what they might need with regards to a trust, it's a different ballgame, because they might actually have a need for a trust as well. Now, we're not attorneys here, okay? Right. We don't give legal advice, but I have attorneys right up the road that we like to refer folks to that do all the estate planning, and they also get involved in some tax planning strategies, because one of the attorneys there is also a CPA. I've used them for contract law as well, and we can get involved in a lot of different types of helpful transactions for folks that could be tax advantaged with the right professionals that we add in there. So there's a lot of things we might do there for you.
Well, one of the things about the will, and I want to ask these questions, is this. A lot of people, if I were to take a microphone out on the street, where are you going to get your money from in retirement? And they'll say Social Security and my 401k. That's probably what they say. There's a lot of different places to get money in retirement. But if you ask some people, they might say, I'm getting an inheritance. And that's what they're depending on in their retirement years. Now, how many people that you talk to, when you talk about this whole idea of estate planning, do they want to be open with their kids about how much money they're going to get? I mean, my mom looked at me and she said, I have a will. I want you to sign it. You're going to be the executor, but we're not going to talk about the money right now. And then later on, when she became incapacitated, I found out about that as the executor, power of attorney, and things like that. But do people want to keep the money secret and say it's coming, but I'm not going to tell you how much because I don't want you to live your life thinking you're getting this inheritance? That's not the way to do it.
I'm glad you brought this up because I know I said 3 out of 4 people come in, have at least a will. Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily said their estate planning was in order. So that's a thing that people need to understand. So they come in, they say, oh, well, I got a will. It's like 25 years old. Or I got a will. It's like 15 years old.
Okay.
Or, oh, I just moved out of state to this. I just moved to North Carolina from out of state. Okay. All of these conversations need to be had because there's different laws in different states. So obviously getting your estate planning in order is a very, very important thing. Now, with regards to that conversation, I tell my clients at a certain time, maybe we ought to involve somebody just based on maybe certain health conditions, maybe some slippage mind-wise. This is extremely important. But there's also a trust thing. There's a trust factor. I have some clients that they'd rather involve attorneys as the trustees or as people that would look after them, to make sure certain things would get done as opposed to the kids. And I get that too. And look, if you're just banking on an inheritance, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go your way. So I probably wouldn't plan for retirement on an inheritance. I don't think that's a great idea. But there are times where I tell clients, I think it's time that we involve somebody. It could be a daughter or son, or it could be a bank or an attorney. And these types of things, these conversations are really happening more and more often as my clients especially get into their 80s.
They really are important, and it is part of the retirement planning and financial planning discussion to talk about, first you're going to want to know about investments and where's the money coming from. And then it's what about taxes? Then it's what happens when I'm not here? And that's where this part of the conversation begins. You can be as open or as secretive as you want, but the important thing is to have those documents in place. And that is a conversation we'll have with you with Mark. Give us a call. Let's talk through all the aspects of your retirement planning. MoreToRetire.com is our website. Again, moreToRetire.com or 984-300-1984. All right, Mark, I went to Publix and I looked in the card section and there is nothing in there for Life Insurance Awareness Month. I'm sorry, Hallmark does not have a card for this. I know we're almost out of September, but I wanted to bring it up before the end of the month, is Life Insurance Awareness Month. And I know in my own life that, I was just pretty typical. When I was in my late 20s and we had kids, I bought a term policy. That's, in case I'm not here, that's going to cover my salary, the expenses that my wife would incur with the kids. Well, those are good for 20 or 30 years. And then when you get into your 50s, all of a sudden they expire. And now you look at yourself and go, all right, my kids are grown. They're out. What do I need for insurance as I go toward retirement? So talk to me a little bit about that, because I know this is one of the areas that you deal with regularly. Insurance has changed. It's not all just death benefits anymore. There's a lot more to life insurance. So what do we need? Is it really costly for people in their 60s? And what do we do about this topic?
So I have life insurance, and I think it's really important. When I got into the insurance business back in 2001, I sold a lot of life insurance policies, but I learned a lot about life insurance and the importance of it. There's different phases in life of why it would be important and how it can be used and the structure behind it. So when somebody thinks about life insurance, the first thing they think about is, oh, you're just trying to supplement a death benefit to help somebody or to bury me or something to that effect.
Yep.
And truthfully, there are so many different uses for life insurance. I'll give an example. Nobody ever brings this up. It comes up once in a great while. But how about a buy-sell agreement between business partners? A perfect example of a time where you would use life insurance.
Okay.
Another example, somebody wants to leave a bunch of taxable accounts, and you're thinking, okay, they'll have to prepare for these taxable accounts. what about life insurance? Life insurance is income tax-free at death to the beneficiaries. And let's just say there's an appreciable amount of assets. You could also do an irrevocable life insurance trust through a well-advised attorney, and they could set that up, and it could take the life insurance death benefit out of your estate, and it can handle it that way. So there you go. You're talking about dealing with an estate issue, right? Mm-hmm. So then we talk about the young person that needs a term policy. But hey, maybe you get in your 40s, you don't need it. Why not buy a convertible term policy? Because when you get older, then you can convert it to a permanent policy, and then you don't have to do it without proving insurability. So you do that. It's a really smart way to go about it, and now you have a cash value policy. However, there's one other way. I love to call it the Roth IRA on steroids. There are people that make too much money to contribute to a Roth IRA. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll backdoor Roth. Well, they'll invest in an IRA and convert it to a Roth, but you're still limited with what the IRS says you can contribute, right? With a life insurance policy, you're not. You can do a life insurance policy where you pretty much kind of overfund either a whole life policy or a universal or index universal life insurance policy, and you overfund it, meaning you're going above what they're asking you to be the target premium, but you stay under what's called the modified endowment contract limit. And then what happens is the policy gets bigger and bigger with the cash because you're putting enough into it to support it, and it's growing with the investments. And then when you turn around at maybe 10, 15 years from now, you start taking either withdrawals or tax-free, and they are tax-free loans if you follow provisions and stay under a modified endowment contract limit and follow what the IRS says. And that's what would occur as well. So there's actually a lot of different ways to use life insurance, and I think it's an extremely important estate planning tool.
You're listening to the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Online, it's moretoretire.com, or give Mark a call, 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. All right, so for those of you who enjoy going to football games or fair festivals, fall festivals, all these different things that are happening at this time of the year, I've got bad news for you. This is a new study about what we eat, okay? For every hot dog that you eat, you lose 36 minutes of life. I may not make it through the show. For every slice of bacon that you eat, you lose 6 minutes off your life. For every diet soda that you drink, you lose 12 minutes of life. I should actually not be here right now, Mark. I got a Diet Coke running right now. We make good decisions with our food. We make bad decisions with our food. And when we talk about this show, we want you to make a decision about getting some financial help. And along those same lines, the people at Northwestern Mutual did a study about people who used financial advisors and people who did not. And they found that people who used a financial advisor on average will retire 2 years sooner. So that's a definite advantage. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen to you, but in any event, Mark, the idea of getting financial help and coming to you at this point in your life can be a good decision for you. I can't say that you're going to make more money. I can't say anything like that. Can't guarantee anything like that. But there is plenty here that talk about the confidence that people walk into retirement when they're using some services like you provide.
Okay, Randy, can we get this out of the way first?
Okay,
hot dogs
you're going back to the hot dogs and bacon. I knew it.
Oh,
here we go.
These are essential, Randy, okay? I don't think you're even living unless you're eating hot dogs and bacon.
Especially at a ball game. Come on, man.
Oh, my gosh, I have to. And then sometimes in the summertime at home, get a little more guilty. My wife will make a chili, and we'll have a little chili on the hot dogs, too, and everything. And, it's fantastic, okay? Now, bacon. All right. All right. In North Carolina, we have some heirloom tomatoes that grow, a German Johnson and a Cherokee Purple, okay? I love to get those suckers. And then I don't want just to have a tomato sandwich. I have a BLT, okay? Bacon is essential in life. So that's out of the way.
And
I can get
I'm hoping you live a very long life, Mark. I hope I'm with you too.
We'll see.
But you know what? On my deathbed, I swear I will never look up and say, I'm so sorry that I drank too many Chick-fil-A shakes. I will never say that in my life. Every single one of them I enjoy to its utmost, okay? All right.
Oh, they're good. I love the Cookout shakes, too. Oh, my gosh. An Oreo shake from Cookout. Oh,
food out of the way.
It's a home run for me.
Let's talk about other good decisions, and that one is to hire a financial planner or a financial advisor.
Or hire me.
There
right?
you go.
Like we said, we're on the fiduciary side of the business in terms of standard of care with regards to brokerage accounts. So if you hire me as a financial advisor and we're working with your brokerage money, that's how we operate. Okay, so that just means we need to put your needs ahead of everything else. We're going to do that. We're going to have conversations with you. We're excited to talk to you about it because I already know that I can help. I know I can help a majority of folks with regards to just answering certain questions. To what level? I don't know. We'll have a conversation. But the one thing I would suggest is this. If you're interested in knowing more about me, go to my website, moretoretire.com. If you go to our process, you'll see our process guide. On our process guide, there's 5 steps that we follow. Number 1 is the treetop view. We just want to get an idea of where you're at, what you're doing. Okay. So normally on the treetop view, what I ask people to do is on my website, you just go to that secure upload button in the right-hand corner and you send me over your brokerage statements. If you want to black out your account numbers, I don't care. But like I said, I'm not going to do anything with them other than run a report. And we want to run a report to identify all those different factors we mentioned earlier. And that report will tell us certain things of what you're doing versus what we do a little bit differently. And we see if we're a match for each other, okay? So here we are with the treetop view. Next, we go to really just kind of discovering your retirement dreams, desires, dates, things like that. And then we start coming up with a plan. So 3 and then 4 and then 5. Basically, what we're doing is we're starting to customize a plan for you. And then we make ongoing changes. That's in step 4 over the years. And step 5 is really just knowing you have ongoing support from us. Our team, everybody here, we care. This is a relationship business for us. We look at our clients like family. So it's really important for us to make relationships. So for me, that's where we start. And if you want to talk to me and you forgot about the phone number, which Randy will bring it up again, you go to my website, moretoretire.com. You go there anytime you want. You go scroll all the way to the bottom of the screen and you'll have a submission form and you send that over to me. And I would be glad to reach right out to you personally and we'll have a conversation.
And maybe we'll go out for a BLT for lunch.
Absolutely.
You're listening
but paying me a fee is not a bad thing.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you that.
Mark Osler Retirement Experience. You can find us online at moretoretire.com. And as Mark just kind of went through it, you'll see as you scroll down, you'll see our process. And you can see that 5-step process that Mark has been talking about there and what you can experience as you come through the door. I think most of us want to know more about our future, more about our retirement, more how it will work. And we would love to provide you with more here with Mark. And so give us a call. Give us a look on our website. Again, moretoretire.com or 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. And that just basically sets up a phone call where we get to know each other, talk about your concerns, what you're worried about. There's some, maybe it's very common. It's Social Security. It's the economy. It's your 401k. What do I do with it? And maybe it's you have a business and it's a little more complicated and you don't know how you're going to go about that. And you're going to sell that business and that's going to power your retirement. Well, that puts you in a different category and maybe we can help there as well. Give us a call. Again, 984-300-1984, 984-300-1984. We thank you so much for listening today. Remember our podcast. You can find that on iTunes and Spotify and hear more. And we hope you're with us again next week here on the Mark Osler Retirement Experience.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Mark Osler Retirement Experience is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Mark Osler Retirement Experience are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risks, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This radio podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be considered as advice designed designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Mark Osler Retirement Experience is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute legal or tax advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein are provided by third parties that have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Market Guard is a firm that provides investment signals as well as portfolio allocation recommendations for a wide variety of model portfolios. Market Guard does not offer advice or enter into fiduciary relationships. Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.